Hey there, Rob Sobek here at Dawn's Appliances in Canonsburg, joined today by my dear friend James Hayes.
Good morning, Rob.
Today we're going to be talking about the appliance selection process and when it's going to happen during your whole home or kitchen renovation. Usually earlier is better in most cases. About 5 years ago, the earlier is better in the process kind of started because of availability.
Mm-hmm.
But now I think it's more dictated by, they don't even want to do a kitchen design until they know how big your appliances are going to be. So
Sure.
Can you speak on that, James?
Yeah, so typically I'd say a good time to start with that's going to be early on in the process. Not necessarily, to your point, a couple years ago it was taking 18 months to get some product in. Now it's not taking that span of time, but having some ideas of what you want to do. So, have a designer kind of lined up on what you want to work with, but before you start finalizing your design process, come in and pick out some appliances. And that's usually a multi-stage process. So come in, put together your wish list, take it to the designer and be like, this is kind of what I'm thinking. And they'll let you know, like, this works, this doesn't work, or maybe we need to downsize something to make it work appropriately in your kitchen. Having a good designer there is going to be key to making sure you have something that works in your space.
Well, right.
Yeah.
You can have, a customer, let's just say, they say that they're just going to get a regular fridge, a regular range, a regular everything. They come here and shop, and you can pick 6 feet of refrigeration. You can pick a 6-foot sink. You can pick a 5-foot range. You can pick a 90-inch range hood. There's a lot of things here where you just are eating up wall, eating up where cabinetry would have been, losing storage, et cetera, and so on. And, in the age of the triangle doesn't happen so much in kitchen design. I don't think it's not as important as it once was. But doing a 48-inch refrigerator instead of a 36, or doing a 60-inch range instead of a 30, can really change where those things are going to be in the kitchen. And you wanted your sink at the window.
Yeah.
But then you pick a range as long as the wall where the window is.
Yes.
Like, how is the sink going to stay there? You know?
Yeah, exactly. So, it's not uncommon for me to have an appointment, have a customer pick out something like that, take it to the designer, and the designer's like, this is all cool, but where do we put it at? And then we come back in and maybe downscale it. But start with your major wish list there. And even if you're looking at just freestanding appliances, making sure you have the right tolerances. A lot of these doors now are going to, on a 36-inch refrigerator, swing like 3 inches outside the case.
The small ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, don't have a designer slam your fridge up against the wall with no space. Leave yourself, 5-6 inches of space, or move it out from the wall a little bit so you have some more selections there. That's big.
Or a recent learning experience is right next to a wall oven base cabinet that is a 30-inch base. Fridges opening outside of themselves. You have doors hitting wall oven handles. Don't put dishwashers at corners right next to a Lazy Susan where you have a pull-out drawer opposing it on the corner.
Yeah.
There's so many small details you learn the hard way in this process. And, I know plenty of designers that we got burned once together and we never make the same mistake again.
Sure.
But then a different designer makes that same mistake, the next year or whatever. So like it's important to come here and pick. But then, we as appliance salespeople, it's not often we're going to go and see that final design, that final floor plan, to give it a once-over of like pointing out where there might be an issue. And I have some designers that have moved in that direction where, you have certain cabinet companies taking certain liberties where, there's a certain brand built-in refrigerator that their spec for depth is this.
Yeah.
It's 25. It's got to be 25. And they're making it 27. And now they do that for leeway, but now that refrigerator isn't making contact with the rear wall and it's choking itself to death. So like there are, taking liberties to allow room for better installation can be good, but there's certain things that you just can't do.
True. Yeah. There's when you start getting into this sort of stuff, having somebody like us to be able to explain that and provide specs and then have someone to talk to, and once you kind of have a design finalized is big, because we have run into this across, I don't know about, you work with a ton of designers, I work with a handful. We have learned together throughout the years of things you can and cannot do.
There's a lot of hard and expensive lessons of whether it be a customer didn't select early enough in the process, or they didn't specify what installation type they wanted until it was too late. How many times have you had a customer come and pick appliances, You send specs. Our specs show both the standard and the flush inset installation. And then we get to install day. Everything installs standard, and the customer's calling you saying, "Why doesn't it look like the wall oven that's on your floor?"
Yeah. Yeah, and then I mean, even to that point, I have a lot. I mean, I took an appointment the other day where they came in with a pre-designed kind of layout. This is what we need, and then when they actually saw the stuff in person, they're like, "Well, we want a bigger range. We want a bigger we don't like the hood design that we were thinking about. We want to change." And it just creates a lot of extra work for the designer and slows up your process. So if you have an idea of what you want before you go into it, that'll help you out drastically. Yeah. So and then even on the plumbing side, I have a lot of customers where maybe they get spec'd out for like a 30-inch base cabinet and they want a double bowl undermount sink.
Nope.
Not happening. It's so making sure that you have the appropriate cabinets for your sinks, things like that, or knowing that if you're going to maybe you're looking at building column refrigeration, which is like a whole category on its own. But most of those do not offer any sort of filtered water. Making sure that you know that going into it, and then maybe you are going to need some sort of filtered water somewhere in the kitchen elsewhere at the sink level or something. So there's a lot of little things to consider and a lot of little things to know that's really helpful to be able to take to your designer and say, "Hey, this is what we're going to need. How does this all fit? How does it work?" And then starting from there.
Right, and the earlier the better. It leaves more room for amendments and changes and redesigns. And so, like, if you're doing a renovation, you're doing a remodel, you found the company that you like, you had your initial consultation, whatever you want to call it, where you talk about the scope of work, what all you want to get done, what your vision is. Go scroll through Pinterest, however that works.
Sure.
After that, you really should be going and selecting your first wave of appliances and plumbing fixtures and light fixtures and hardware and things of that nature, and make sure that at your next, like a design appointment, they can tell you what clashes, what works, what fits, what doesn't, and then you go and reselect if you need to.
Yeah. And if you're doing a high-end kitchen with us, I mean, it's not a terrible idea to have your designer come with you here on the floor.
I'm all for that.
Yeah, because that really helps the process, because if, they had spec for 42 inches of refrigeration and you're looking at it, you're like, I want 60, and they're there, maybe they don't have room for it. And we can kind of speed the process up there a little bit for you.
They're doing a 60-inch Blue Star range, on their range wall. But the designer knows that it's an inside wall and it's going to be a recirculating hood, but we don't know that, and the customer doesn't know that, and you find out too late in the game, and there's nothing you can do. So like the designer coming is a great positive in the process of selecting the appliances and not falling in love with something that isn't possible.
Sure. So, if you want to know a little bit more, check out donsappliances.com. We have a lot of things you can see there. Stop into a store. You can even make appointments with guys like me and Rob who've been doing this for a long time now, and we can kind of help with the process and get you started, and then, help you troubleshoot going down the road if something doesn't work with a particular design. So, I don't know, is there anything else you have, Rob?
The moral of the story is it's never too early to shop for appliances.
All right.